Hey 360 North fans, it's time for another tech tip to keep your adventures out in nature going strong. Today we're going to talk about what happens when you swamp your quad. If you tune in to us on Facebook, you'll have seen on our last adventure that this quad was all the way up to the racks in water. We'll show you a little clip of that.
Granny always said buy an Articat. We're about to show you why. Sometimes Granny's wrong. Well, he's got her buried to the tail light. For you folks watching at home, I'm not taking that line on my little fella. Yeah, I won't be following you in, I'll tell you that for free.
So as you can see, the quad was pretty deep in water, and what can happen is through the intake track you're going to suck in water. The intake track is along with the intake breather for the clutch system. Water gets sucked into your clutch case, has nowhere to go, the water starts building up. The effects on that can be slight to quite dramatic. In this case, in high gear, the quad would barely roll forward. It was completely filled with water. So there's a plug on the underside. You just grab your toolkit from underneath your seat, loosen off that drain plug and remove it. You're going to leak all that water out and you'll be up and running once everything dries out a little bit. Run the quad for a bit once you've pulled that drain plug, let the moisture come out, put the plug back in, and you're up and riding again. However, when you get back home, water, mud, other crud's gotten in there, and you're going to want to take care of that. So what we're going to do today is we're going to pull some of the panels off of this bike, which is an Articat Alterra TRV. We're going to pull the covers off. We're going to clean all that out just to make sure everything's good so we don't shorten the life of the clutches or the belts. Put everything back together and you're good to go again. In order to get started, we're going to start taking the plastic footwell off. That's the first piece that's got to come off in order to access the clutch cover. Some of the tools you're going to need to complete this job. You need a rubberized hammer or a mallet in order to gently pull the clutch cover off. You need a ratchet wrench, 27 sized torque bit, 10mm ratchet wrench. You can use just a regular wrench if you don't have a ratcheting one. And you need an 8mm socket. It's always handy to have some of Grandma's little Tupperware. Just throw that in there, that way you don't lose anything. I've taken the liberty of loosening things off a little bit in order to speed things along. Okay, now you've removed all the hardware, you start popping the panels off. Next we're going to remove these top 2 pins. You may end up breaking these. You can buy a pack of them through your Alterra dealer for fairly cheap. But you just kind of gently work it up, pull the plug out, and then pop the rest. Sometimes you'll mangle them if they're really in there. If you do, like I said, just go to the dealer. You can buy a pack of them. They're fairly cheap. Just kind of work it a little bit back and forth. This one's a little tighter. Goes. My quad uses those same fasteners, so I always keep a couple spare on hand. Next we're going to remove the top storage compartment. I already kind of loosened things up, but you just pop the lid, take this portion off. Then the tray just pops out. Hardware up here that we're going to have to remove uses the same Torx bit as before. And there's 2 more of these plastic parts up here. Okay, in order to remove this piece of trim, we've got to pop off this front nose in front of the gauge cluster. So you got to just pull another bolt from the other side using the same Torx as before. Okay, once that's out, there's just little plastic retainer clips that are kind of L-shaped. Just give a little wiggle as you go. You can see the clips there. Just kind of go easy with it, otherwise you could end up breaking those off. There'll be another Torx bit up at the front here, so we're just going to pull that out. Once that's out, the panel's going to pop out. Now if you're able to fit your hand back in there, there's some even smaller Torx bits you can see here, all along here. If you were to take those out, you could probably pop that panel off and be able to access the clutch cover without taking this off. You're not going to have any room to get in there with your rubber mallet, so you could try and use it as a workaround, but you saw how long that took. It's probably easier just to pull it off. Now that we've got the top of the bike exposed, you can see the air box right here. Your air filter is actually conveniently located here. Once you pop off those storage containers, you just undo these little bolts. And there's your air filter. This bike's only got about 200 kilometers on it. It's still looking pretty good, but since we have everything apart, we're going to take the liberty of popping that out, cleaning it, re-oiling it, so it's ready to go again. This is the snorkel for the clutch air intake system I was telling you about. It's actually located quite high, and Alterra's done a good job at placing that component up high. It goes directly down and is the breather to try and keep the clutch case cool. So without that component, the clutch is going to get very hot, so you do need to have that. A snorkel kit is something you can do. You could put this on here and locate it even higher, so if you get into that deep water situation, you're still going to turn out okay. This is about above my waist, so you have to get in water quite deep. Right, next we got to remove the rear brake pedal. It's right in the way of pulling the clutch cover off, so you got to pull that out of there. Just detach that little spring, set that aside, and pop that out of the way. In order to allow you more clearance to remove the clutch cover, And to be able to get at these 2 bolts in behind, you're going to loosen 2 bolts just under here. Right, so the footwell cage is going to have to come off in order to be able to adequately get in here and remove this cover. There's 2 bolts we remove at the front using a 13mm socket, as well as a 10mm wrench on the other side, which is going to allow the front to droop down. We're going to remove 2 bolts at the back as well. So in order to remove the top bolt, there's really tight clearances. I can't quite get a 10mm ratchet with enough torque to break it free, and the ratchet doesn't fit. However, if you just kind of wiggle it, the bracket will actually tilt down on its own and you can leave the top one in. The gas tank and the rest of the clutch air breather are in the way, so we're just going to tilt that down a little bit in order to do what we need to do. Alright, with the footwell sufficiently out of the way, we're ready to start removing the clutch cover. You're going to utilize an 8mm ratchet in order to pull them all off. Actually, they're all the same length on this particular model, so if you have an Arctic Cat Alterra 500, you could just throw them all in Tupperware there and just put them all back in as you go. So this is where your rubber mallet's going to come in handy. You're just going to kind of try to tap it free. You don't really want to get a screwdriver in there and start prying it, as you're going to tear this gasket. I know what you're thinking. Granny says every time you take it apart, you replace the gasket. Unfortunately, Granny's pockets are deeper than mine. It's $90 plus all applicable taxes to the Canadian government. So if you don't have to replace that gasket, don't replace the gasket. There we go. It's popped off. The gasket's still in fantastic shape. You could use RTV gasket maker. I know Granny says don't use it, but we're not actually going to be required to do that on this one. It's still in fantastic shape. You can see already in the top of the case there's all kinds of mud and crud. This destroys clutches. So that's why when you're on the trail, you can't really take apart your whole bike. So pull the drain plug, drain out what you can, do the best you can, but when you get the bike home and you clean it up, take this off and deal with that, because nothing's going to ruin your clutch faster than that. As I was saying earlier, this bike only has 200 kilometers. It's still brand new, so we're not going to take all the clutches apart and scuff them. If you have more mileage on your quad, definitely take a Scotch-Brite pad. You're going to pull this nut off. Take the clutch off and you're going to Scotch-Brite pad it. Once you pull the belt off, there's a screw that comes in your toolkit. You're going to thread into the face of the clutch, which is going to spread it out. It'll allow you to take the belt off. It's also going to give you space to get a Scotch-Brite pad in there. And you're going to not go in circular rotations. You're going to go in lines up and down to basically take any kind of rubber that is glazing the clutches and making them really smooth, which is going to affect your clutch's ability to grip, and you're going to take that off. Because this bike has so few kilometers, I don't think it's really required in this case. We're going to clean this all up in here. We're not going to use soapy water or anything like that. We're just going to use straight water. We're going to clean it up on the inside. Okay, we popped the air filter out. We're gonna service that. It's basically just foam. You can see it's got some mud and stuff on it, and there's a spring inside. Just gonna gently pull that out of there. Just like that. And then we're just gonna hose this off. Once you clean all the crud out of it, I spray it from the inside, pulls all the dirt out. You're just gonna use some Can-N like filter oil. Okay guys, you can see it's all cleaned up now. We've sprayed this out. We didn't end up using a Scotch-Brite on the clutches. There's no glazing on them or anything like that, so everything you took apart, putting it back together is just the opposite. So we'll start putting it back together now.
Tell me now, what's left to lose if we run?
Alright guys, just a quick note, the torque spec on these is 47 inch-pounds, whatever the hell that means. You don't need to do them to that. Basically I would equate it to the type of torque you're going to put on a spark plug, a little bit less than that. They don't need much. Also, when you're tightening these on, you're going to want to go in almost like a star pattern, similar to how you put wheels on. So we're going to start with this one, then we're going to come down here. Then we'll come up here, and we'll go here. And you're basically going to crisscross all the way around until you got it tightened on.
I can't believe the night lay waste to all we'd given, but honestly, you've gotta know that this ain't living, but we could run from Elysium and let it burn, let it burn. You've gotta know that nothing lasts forever. I can't believe myself. I never thought that this would be our end, but it's nothing new. And my lover's honesty, I can push it back down if I have to. If you want me to, 'cause we can run. And we can run. The stars they fall all for you. So tell me now, what's left to lose if we run?
Alright, 360 North fans, if you follow these tips and service your quad while you're out on your adventures or when you've come home, it's going to keep the good times rolling. Just an update, obviously we used some more tools than we thought we would have needed once we got into it. We ended up using a flathead screwdriver to pop up those plastic rivets. We used a 10mm, a 13mm socket on our ratchet, as well as an 8mm. We have a 10mm wrench, a 13mm wrench, a 12mm wrench, and a 16mm wrench. That should be enough tools to get the job done. If you have any questions, comments, leave them down below. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks guys, we'll see you next time.
And let it